Dan, how many screenplays would you say over the course of your lifetime you've read?
I probably over 1,000. I'm not one of those people who's like, I've read 5,000 or 6,000.
Dan, of the numerous scripts that you've read, how many would you say went on to become films?
Very few. It's very rare that they do. It's hard for a script to get optioned or sold, and then it's even harder for it to get produced. So it's very rare, and that's why I always say your script has to be great. It can't just be good, it has to be great. That's why I titled my first book, How to Write a Great Screenplay, with great in caps. Because working as a reader and now as a writing coach, something really has to blow me away. And because it's so tough for it to rise up the ladder and become an option script, a sold script, a produced script. So you really have to come in with something with a unique voice, with a unique approach to a commercially successful genre. It's really tough. So I can't really put my finger on how many became produced of scripts that I read, but it's few and far between.
So going back to when you got a BFA at NYU.
Yeah.
You were doing this like script reading and all that. From that time when you went to NYU to the beginning stages of the script reading job, were you aware of how tough it was, or at that time it was just like you thought that if something was really good and it was a first-time writer, the doors were open?
I was probably a bit more naive. I probably thought that more things rose up the ladder and got bought and greenlit and produced. But after a while, I realized, well, first things first, 9 out of 10 scripts I would pass on, I would reject. So I got the sense right away that even though this was, on the professional level and these scripts were coming from agents and managers and producers, some had major stars attached, but the material just wasn't there. It just wasn't great. And so I would pass on most things, 9 out of 10 things. So what was great was, as a reader, I was always looking for that thing to say yes to, not to say no to, because it was so exhilarating when I found that 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 20 scripts that month that really blew me away and really brought it and excited me. And I was happy to give it a consider or a recommend on the coverage report.
Was it that black or white? Was it either a yay or a nay, or was there sometimes a middle ground where yes, but this needs to be tightened up?
Yeah, there's something called consider with reservations, which is, this could be a great movie for my employer, but there's reservations about it. It would be really expensive. There's not a kind of star role in it. It's too long, so it would need to be cut down, but we're considering it, that reader is considering it because it's great writing, And now what's good about the consider with reservations, or just the consider level evaluation, because there's pass, consider, recommend. Recommend is really high. Recommend is like, this is not only great material, but this is ready and perfect for my employer. So this particular studio, this is right in their wheelhouse. It's right in the budget range, so I fully recommend that. Consider is a really good grade, and any writer should be excited to get a consider. And what it means is, even if that particular piece of material isn't right for that production company or that studio, the writer is a good writer, and they may want to work with this writer on another project. So they may want to bring them in for a meeting, see if there's someone they could work with, and then maybe give them an assignment, like a rewrite assignment.
Excellent. How often have you seen an unknown writer be a recommend, come in and they greenlight it and it actually happens? How often has that happened?
Well, that's very rare. In general, I probably only gave a handful of recommends in 8-9 years. I mean, literally like 5 or 6. In each case, I personally didn't know the writer. Like in one case, there was a book by, I didn't know his name at the time I was reading it, but it turns out he was a pretty well-known writer he'd also written a famous movie, and he'd written some books. But at the time, he was an unknown to me because I didn't recognize his name. And so the few times I've had to recommend, they haven't been from produced name writers. They were basically from unknowns. You know, they were writers that I didn't recognize their names.
Interesting. And you found something about their voice unique?
Yeah, they had a great voice. They had material that was in the wheelhouse of the studio I was working for. So it was in that genre, it was in that budget range, it was the kind of thing they were looking for. When I was working for Miramax, which was headed by Harvey Weinstein at the time, the Weinstein brothers, it was known that Harvey liked to shoot in Italy. So any material that was set in Italy was to be considered higher, you know, was to be given more attention. And so in one case, I actually had a development executive give me a book and say, this is set in Italy, Harvey loves Italy, he's looking for another thing to shoot in Italy, he just shot Gangs of New York with Scorsese there, and so I really want you to give this a good evaluation and hopefully you'll like it. And I actually asked her, I'm like, do you want me to just give it a consider, you know, even if it sucks, you know, like, help you out here? And she's like, no, I want you to give us your honest opinion. And I read it and it wasn't good enough, and so I passed on it. And I don't know what happened after that, but she probably wasn't happy with me.
It's better that you're honest about it.
Yeah, it's all about the material. So,
Sure.
And I just didn't think the material was there.
So as a reader, you don't know very much about this writer, and is that right? I'm assuming it's...
Yeah, you don't know anything really.
That's good.
Unless you recognize the name. So yeah, the reader gets no information going in. They may see a cover letter, they may see an email history, maybe, but not always. So if they happen to see an email history, they may know a little bit about the, you know, this is what the agent has written back and forth with the development executive before they actually send the PDF. So the reader may see that, but they probably won't, because it's all about the material. Is this material strong enough? You know, if it's coming from Aaron Sorkin, you may give a little bit more weight to that because Aaron Sorkin can get a film made. He can write a greenlit movie, but you're still evaluating on the writing. So if Aaron Sorkin has written something that's not right for your company or just isn't at the level of quality that would get a recommend or a consider, if that reader's being honest, they're gonna pass on it.
Right. Yeah, I was just wondering how much of your own personal bias, you know, if you see someone's picture, you might like them more and then like their script more, you know, or,
yeah.
Or if you know their backstory and then that just...
Maybe, but you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't have any bias. And in my experience, I almost never knew the backstory of a particular piece of material.